Hi friends, let's check out some best practices that are going to help your entire team.
To show best practices, we're going to be looking at rebuilding this content shell right here. I'm going to show you everything that it has. A desktop and a mobile version, light or dark version. It has an effects layer. It has an overlay. We can play with this little accent line down here at the bottom. You can kill the header, but why would you? You can turn off the subhead. You can turn off the body copy. You can turn off the button. And you can turn off the background text. So that's everything that it does, and it's pretty light, pretty flexible. Let's get started. Here are all the pieces, and here's a bit of a checklist. Right off the bat, we want to build everything atomically. If you don't know how to create atomic design, you can look up Atomic Design by Brad Frost or just Atomic Design. Number 2, build everything with Autolayout. I have a few components right here. I have my spacer components. I colored them white just so you could see them, but I'm gonna take the fill off. All right, cool. I'm gonna reselect and I'm gonna put them in auto layout. 0. I use spacers because I can have different amounts of space in between elements. So here's the background. I'm gonna set this to one of my favorite things, absolute position. I'm gonna go into outline mode, which is Command Y. Make sure that that's all set up. Top left, top right. We are looking good. Now I just need to reorder this, and I need to add the padding, which is 40 and 24. That has auto layout. That's looking good. Now we're gonna move on to our next checklist point, which is images should always be on their own layers, and they should always be set to fill. You can see right here I have an image, a black and white effect, and an overlay. So these two things can be added in code. So we're just gonna pretend that they are, and then I have my accent line. I'm gonna grab this images fill, and I'm going to paste it in here, get rid of that background. We are going to combine all these and say thank you, because now we have the fill. 0, and then we are gonna start setting things to absolute position. The image is set, throw that in back there. Black and white set, throw that back there. And done. Okay. I'm gonna start out with the accent line real quick, and it's basically the same thing over and over again. I wanna make sure it's on the bottom, make sure it's centered. Okay, so then attach it left and right and bottom so it always stays at the bottom, which is perfect. All 3 of these, I'm gonna do the same thing, left and right, and top and bottom. The black and white layer, I'm just going to change the opacity to hue. Oh, one of the new features that Figma just came out with is you can kind of scroll over, and now you can see how these have an effect on your image. Okay, black and white is good. Everything looks like it's good to go. We are just gonna rename this, and we'll call it Hero 1. Time to resize it. Fixed. Because everything in here is set to left and right or top and bottom, it should flex with us when we change the size. And it did, so it worked out perfectly. And we are still set to auto layout because that's one of the best practices. I'm gonna move these over a little bit. Now I'm gonna grab my text set, and I'm gonna drop it in here. You can't see it because it is behind, but I'm gonna move it in front. Okay, so now I'm gonna center this. All right, I wanna readjust this image. Before I do, I wanna lock these because I just wanna be able to command click and go right to the image. And then I'm gonna crop because I want this to be more impactful. And I kind of know what you're thinking. Wasn't one of your rules always set to fill? And the answer is yes. But that's why we are gonna export and re-upload. So now that that is set to fill and the image has its own layer, we're gonna move on to naming your layers. It's super nice for people who aren't designers, and it's gonna help them find things quickly. Make sure to name your layers. Next, we wanna turn this into a component set. So I'm gonna turn it into a component with Option Command K on a Mac, Then I'm going to turn it into a component set by clicking that button. Let me go ahead and expand this down. And we are also going to revisit name your layers. And I'm gonna understand I have variant properties like light or dark or desktop or mobile. Now, if you're confused about when to use component props and variant props, you can check up the top right screen. I have a very quick little tutorial on that, and it'll help you get a grasp on when you should use component props versus variant props. And I'm gonna change the name right here, desktop or mobile. Another best practice is what I'm doing right here. Instead of writing out desktop or mobile, once you have this prop in here, you want to make sure that people can see it. I generally set my desktop to true, so that's good. Now I'm going to click into here. So the way that this works is you can see how it changed my property name to desktop or mobile. And I messed up, so it's good that I'm showing you how to do this. So this just needs to equal true. And now I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste. The other thing that I want is a light or dark mode. So I'm going to hit Command R. That's the rename. Let's go ahead and add this on. So I can see equals true is probably one of the last things that I wrote. And to make sure, I'm gonna cancel. And another best practice, you can see how when we looked at it, it didn't have spacing. So the reason why this is a best practice is you don't exactly know what the name is until you click in. So now I'm gonna rename. I'm gonna match this, but I'm going to add a comma and I'm going to put light or dark equals true. And now I've successfully added my name. So it goes property equals value, comma, property equals value. I'm gonna select my component set to see if there's any conflicting variants, and there is. You can't have two variants with the same name. Let's just say this will be my light and this will be my dark. And that means I have to change this to false because I'm using Boolean properties here. So now I'm gonna check and see if I have any conflicting properties again, and I'm good to go. So now that we've renamed our layers, it's in a component set, we're gonna move down to adding properties. So let's get moving. Now, if you don't know about component properties, you can check up in the top right screen. I have a playlist that will take you through all of the component properties and give you a pretty good idea of how to set them up. Let's get started, and I'll probably fast forward through these once I get a couple of them done. Show image works for me, and to be honest, probably don't need it. There's always gonna be an image. Down here, I'm going to switch these up real quick so it just makes more sense for everybody. And that way you can see what I'm talking about because I'm gonna use the variant targeting system. If you don't know how to use a variant targeting system, check in the top right, I have a tutorial on that as well. So I select it, so now I have both black and white effect layers, and I'm gonna add my, all right, I'm gonna call that show effect. Boom. Show 60, overlay, 60% black, good with that as well. Then I'm gonna dip into the text set background. I'll open this up for you a little bit. Yeah, I like it. But once again, we want to keep the name short. I'll change that to PG for background. I think I messed up because I didn't. There we go. So that's a good way to check. If I'm making sure that I'm checking component properties, then I can see my prop right here. I'm going to hit my target and it's still there. So that means it's on all the layers selected. I'm going to do the same with this. I didn't do it with the other layers. So now I can go back in and I can add that. So I'm happy that I'm finding mistakes so I can show you all. Okay, my headline. Here's another thing that I definitely want to show. So number one, I'm going to add the Boolean property and my text property. Here's the other thing that I want to highlight first is when I have a light and a dark version, I don't want to create a text property for light headline and a text property for dark headline. I want everything to be married together and synced together. So that way, if I change it here, it's going to change it here. That's what I want to happen across mobile and across everything else. I don't want to redo work. The other thing that you need to worry about when you're using spacers is that I need to tag my spacers as well. So let's double check. I think I'm on both. That works. I want the spacer to be tagged. I want the spacer to move along with the headline. So if I turn off the visibility on the headline, it turns off the padding below the headline. So that's how we are doing that. And you don't want to see this. You get the idea. So we're gonna fast forward through this. All right, I'm gonna come out of super speed mode real quick to explain something about the button. So the button is a nested instance. So to the right of properties, I'm gonna hit the plus button and I'm gonna hit nested instances. So I don't need to show any properties of my spacer. I'm not gonna be playing around with them that much, but what I will be playing around with is the button. So I'm gonna select that. And as you can see now, you can turn on and off the left and right icon, and you should be able to change the text, but we'll look at that when we look at an instance of this. So we're gonna keep on moving down. We have added our component props. It's time to play with our variants. So it's time to make a light, dark version and a mobile version. So now that I have my space and I'm gonna continue on with my variants, I'm gonna fast forward because all I'm really doing here is changing colors. You all know how to change colors. Okay, so I've changed the colors. Those are good to go. And I am going to duplicate these because I need mobile versions. These are going to be false. So now all I have to do is change the type size. So you can see my variant props have a diamond on them. You can see my component properties are either gonna have an eyeball, a T, or if there was an instance swap in there, I believe it would be a diamond. If you wanted to change the default setting, you can do that through here, okay? Or, because these have props attached to them, I can change it here as well. And then when I go back to my text set, we can look, oh, it was set to false. So you can change your default values in either place. You're good to go in both. I generally lead with a Boolean property and then a text, or a Boolean property and an instance swap. And I'll show you why real quick. So if I get rid of my headline, right, it gets rid of the option to type. So every now and then what would happen before I started leading with a Boolean and the text was above here, I would accidentally input the text and realize I turned it off. So might save you some time, just a personal preference thing. I'm gonna go back to the previous frame by pressing Shift N, and we're gonna continue to double check everything. This is in order, the same order as here. And when I hover over it, you can see that it selects the text as well as the spacer below it. Show headline, headline text, show subhead, subhead text. It's all in order, the same order that I have it on the screen. So I am a happy camper. The reason why this is really nice for your account team, your PM, your copywriter, is because all they have to do is select the component and then they can change to whatever they want, right? Done. It makes it easy for everyone. In certain cases, there's gonna be layers upon layers upon layers, and this right-hand panel can get extremely long. So I do want to show, this is a little bonus tip. If you want to change the copy and you don't want to have to worry about this, I'm going to hold the command key down. I'm going to double click and that puts me into the text box. Now I'm going to make my change and then I'm going to hit command return to confirm it. And now I can move on to whatever other text box I need to move on to. So that's what makes this easy from a copy changing standpoint. The other thing is, because I have the image on its own layer, I'm going to deselect everything and I want to command click. So now it just drills right down to the layer image and I can go to export. Let's check out the preview. So now I have an unadulterated, unaltered image that I can export at whatever size that I want. Maybe I want JPEGs and a 2x and a 1x, and we're good to go there. Now let's move on to the next step. Instructions. I'm gonna write, for desktop, use anchor point alignment widget inside Autolayout to move text set around. I'm gonna hit enter and we're gonna test that out. And I'm gonna zip down to my anchor point alignment tool widget and I found a mistake. Dun, 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 right? So we're gonna go back to the component, okay, boom. And I am going to adjust my padding on both of these. So we're just gonna call it 32 and 32 because we're on a fluid grid. Cool, select this, I'm gonna press Shift 2. That's gonna zoom me right in there. And we're gonna continue to play and debug. So zipping on down. Now we're looking good. I'm gonna zip back and I'm gonna add the link to documentation. Click here, add link to documentation, enter. Let's go ahead and check out the instance. but we want to check out this instance from a dev point of view. Here I am from a developer's point of view, and I'm going to select my component. I can either do it by pressing Command click, or probably Control click for devs if they're on a PC, or you can select the component directly from the layer stack.
Because you've added component properties, the developer or anyone else who needs copy can simply click on the copy. It says subhead. I'm going to click on subhead. You can see that it's copied to my clipboard. If I wanted to copy body copy, I click on body copy and you can see the notification again, copy to clipboard. If they needed to extract the image assets, all they have to do is click on the image. So by default, it's going to drill down through everything. And because you've put a lock on both of the effect and overlay, it will drill down through those and they'll select the image, which they can go to export, and they can set up whatever export settings they want. There's one last thing that I would like to show, and that's how to get to documentation. So the instructions are here, the properties are here, as well as the properties for the button. But here's the button to the documentation. So if I click on the documentation, that will bring the developer or anyone else who touches that button to the documentation file. I also like to do one more thing. If I zoom in here, I also like to have links out to the design system and to my research. So if the developer wants to see the different states and variants, they can do so right here. I also like to add a link out to the research, but this is all personal preference. If you have additional best practices, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. Please like, share, subscribe. Bye, friends.